Hello everyone and welcome back to my WWF Let's Play video series. I am Be Better Gamer, and thank you for joining me. If this is your first time joining me, thank you. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if this is your second time, third time, however many time back, thanks for coming back. I'm glad I have a small group of followers building. And this episode is going to be pretty cool. We're going to delve into the sort of the origins of the European title, and you can't really talk about much in the WWE without stumbling upon Triple H. At least not anything within the past, 15 years. Triple H has been around a long time, and I saw him, I vividly remember him coming into the WWE as Hunter Hearst Helmsley when he had that sort of blue blood gimmick, which he had carried over from WCW. I don't really remember that too much. I didn't really remember seeing him on WCW programming with that gimmick, but I do remember him coming in as the blue blood, this very snobbish, regal type character, and he was just, I didn't think much of him back then. I don't think anyone really did. He wasn't involved in any major feuds. The thing that really made him stick out early on was, he fought Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 12. And that was a big deal for me as a kid because, hey, Ultimate Warrior was back. I was a big Ultimate Warrior fan when I was a little kid. So to hear that he was now back in the WWE or WWF, and it was really funny. We were watching the pay-per-view at my friend's house, and I'll never forget this. So Ultimate Warrior comes out, dun, 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 I run down. I'm like losing it. My dad's there, my friend's brother's there, and then my friend is like, oh man, I gotta use the bathroom. So he goes to use the bathroom, and if you remember the WrestleMania 12 match, it was a complete squash, and Ultimate Warrior beat him in like in a minute or two, and the music started playing, and my friend comes running out the bathroom like, what, the match is over already? So yeah, it was a big moment to be a wrestling fan as a kid, to see the Ultimate Warrior come back. So in this episode I will be doing a European Championship run with Triple H. He actually, like many things in the WWE, he actually has a huge impact on the history of the European title. It's not like he came out right away and was the game. He had to work his way up, and he made his mark when he was the European champion. And I don't know why I'm just standing here in costume edit. I know I was intending to make some classic DX style Triple H design. They have his old tights. You can buy it in the SmackDown Mall. And I think I must have moved away from the game at this point, so it's quite thrilling, isn't it? Just watching Triple H breathe in and out with that referee outfit and his long blonde hair. Triple H used to have long flowing hair, and actually I was like, when I was creating this outfit, that's what I was thinking, like, should I keep him with like the brown hair, or should I give him, it was definitely blonde at one point, and I had to like look back at the old videos of him wrestling, and yeah, you can go back and forth. You can kind of say it was blonde, or dirty blonde, if you will, brownish kind of blonde. And I don't know, I decided to go with the blonde because I felt it looked better. It made him look more like the classic Triple H than it did with the brown hair, so I kept it with the blonde. I think also in the WWE 13, or is it 12? Let me look. What is it? Oh, WWE 13, where they do the Attitude Era, and you can replay all the Attitude Era matches. His hair is blonde in that one, so I was like, I might as well go with blonde, or at least it looks blonde in that one. Again, it could be, is the dress blue and black or gold and silver? Who knows? So that's how I am. I thought it was blonde. I think it looks good as blonde. If you want to make your own classic Triple H, you can give him whatever color hair you want to give him. But I gave him blonde. I thought it'd be fitting because he won the European title so early on. I was like, you know, it'd be cool to give him his old, you know, sort of DX style outfit. Now, when he actually won the title and he wrestled for the title and defended the title, he was in that weird, like, I don't really have a wrestling outfit kind of phase. You know, he was transitioning from his blue blood gimmick into being a member of DX Army with Shawn Michaels, and it was really just him, Shawn Michaels, Chyna, and like Rick Rude in the beginning, and then later on they added the Outlaws and X-Pac. But you know, he had those, like, they look like wrestling tights, but then they look like dress pants kind of outfit, and then he wore his like knee pads on the outside and just regular wrestling boots, and then later on he would have like the H's on his knee pads, or he would have like H's, you know, the 3 H's on the inside of his thigh. So they didn't really have anything like that in this game, but they did have, as you see, his like Triple H sort of DX wrestling tights that he wore briefly. Sometimes he had it in alternate colors. I remember there was a blue one time he had that was kind of cool looking. So yeah, Triple H had very interesting attire early on, if you remember, transitioning from his blue blood gimmick into you know, being Triple H, being a member of DX, and you know, even the title right there, the title of the pants, it's called Triple H DX, which is neat, you know. So I figured I'd give him that because it's a throwback, and Triple H, you know, as we're about to talk about in a second, you know, was one of the early title holders for the European title. Now, in this format, this episode, I'm going to do things a little differently. If you're joining me for the first time, again, thank you. Normally, when I do these championship runs, I talk about, you know, the context of their championship runs in relation to, you know, when the game was being released. I try to stay within the framework of November 99 to November 2000, because WrestleMania 2000 was released like October 31st, 1999, and No Mercy was released in November of 2000. So you gotta assume, obviously, from November 99 up until its released, it was being worked on, and maybe even before that into WrestleMania 2000. Now, some of the European champions that I've wrestled as or played as in the game, I didn't wrestle as them. I didn't dress up and wrestle as these guys. You know, they didn't hold the title during that time. So I've begun to, you know, adjust my little formula that I've created for myself. I'm gonna change a lot of the rules I make for myself when I'm creating these videos. I don't want to hold them too tight to you know, a particular set of way to do them. I don't want to do that. I don't want to constrict myself, but I try to stay within that year, and if not, then I try to focus on what they did as the European champion, and then sometimes I'll talk about both. If I have enough time, I'll talk about what they did as the European champion, and then also like their year in review, you know, what they did from November 99 to November 2000. Check out my D'Lo Brown episode. It's a perfect example of this because he held the title pretty much leading up right until before that November 99 slot, and his year in review was very slim compared to what he did while being the European champion the 4 times he held it. So with Triple H, I could do both. I could talk about his European title runs and his year in review, but Triple H's year in review, I mean, the game, it kind of itself revolves around the whole Stephanie McMahon and Triple H era, you know, the McMahon-Helmsley era. You know, so there you see Triple H coming out with Stephanie McMahon. I took the bottle away from him. It sucks that you can't adjust wrestlers like entrances, because I think that would have been kind of neat, because then I could have created like a really true to form Triple H DX, but now he's still coming out. I changed the music and I changed the Titantron, but I can't change his entrance, so that's kind of unfortunate, but whatever. It's still cool because in the ring, you know, I'm wrestling as him. And going against D'Lo Brown, I got to beat him in a singles match before I can do the championship path. so that when I go into the championship mode as Triple H, he'll already be the champion. But yeah, so the game revolves around, you know, the McMahon-Helmsley era. That's the big storyline going into it. But so I figured I'm gonna be doing multiple probably Triple H runs. Maybe I'll do an Intercontinental run as him, because he had a very successful Intercontinental reign, or several reigns. And I'm definitely doing a World Heavyweight Championship run as Triple H. So I figured I'd talk about, you know, that big storyline stuff through the year from November 99 to November 2000, when I maybe do his World Heavyweight run, because it'll be a little bit more fitting. So I'm gonna probably elaborate a lot more, not only on his European title run, but, you know, what was going on at the time with DX and the various feuds, and how a lot of things, you know, as much as they change, they stay the same. And yeah, so let's get right into it. And real quick, you know, before we get into this path with Triple H, what do I do? How do I play it? So he's gonna be already the champion, so I'm gonna have to lose the first match. It's almost exactly like D'Lo Brown's run. I'm gonna lose the first match, and then I'm gonna say yes to Shane, and then I'm gonna let Shane lose. So it's gonna be a twist. I'm gonna betray Shane McMahon in the end, and then he's probably still gonna put me in a handicap match, so as he's wont to do in this game. So yeah, Triple H, there I go, taking it to D'Lo Brown. You know, it feels good to play as Triple H sometimes, because then you're not on the receiving end of that pedigree, or that jab, that step jab that he would do, that would kind of irk me, because sometimes I could block it like all the time, you know, when he threw that jab when I'm playing as him, or if I'm playing against someone who's playing as him, or someone else who has that jab, because quite a few wrestlers have that jab, that like strong step jab. You know, sometimes I can nail it all the time, like I could counter it, I mean, and sometimes I couldn't. So it felt good to be in control of it and play as Triple H and just straight up dominate. He's a pretty good character in this game. He's got a strong moveset. Here I go back and forth with D'Lo Brown with the counters. That overhand punch, oh look at that. I was able to stay in it. There was a point in time, I played this game so much. There was a point in time where I would always block that strong overhand punch. It's like one of the most generic punches. A lot of wrestlers in the game have it. And I, you know, played all the iterations of this game, and there was a point where like I would not miss it. I would not. Anytime anyone threw it, I would counter it. I was that good. My reflexes aren't as strong as they were in my prime when I played this game, because I was playing it every day for like 10 hours straight practically. I don't know if that was accurate, but it's probably pretty accurate. And you know, so I'm just now getting back into the game, so you know, it's kind of like muscle memory. I'm kind of, you know, countering a lot like I used to, and as you saw right there, I was able to counter D'Lo Brown multiple times, you know, and hold my you know, hold I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I was basically, it was kind of like how I used to counter it in the old. And me and my friend, who was also really good at the game, we used to just have like a counter frenzy when we would play against each other, because we were so good with the timing, with the countering of the punches. That's something I really miss with the newer wrestling games. It's hard to counter those chops. I mean, it's like kind of a good and bad that the animation has gotten better, but at the same time, and here I go, I'm trying to see if I can edit if Stephanie can accompany me to the ring or not, because I want him to come, you know, at least with China. Like, that would have been cool, right? The only way to really create like a pure DX Triple H in this game is to create it from scratch, which isn't too bad to do. I mean, you can just clone a wrestler over from you know, from the roster into one of those blank created wrestler slots, and I believe the moveset also carries over, and then you could just edit it in your created wrestler slot. So you could do that if you wanted to go out of your way and do like a pure Triple H DX, which, hey, maybe I might do. Maybe I might do that down the line. Do a few changes to like his entrance and things like that. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the newer wrestling games, it's hard to counter those strikes because the animation and the hit detection is a lot different. It wasn't as simple as this one, or these games I should say. And I kind of missed that because you don't really get into those big countering fesses. You can't really read when your opponent is gonna do a strike move. You know, in this game you can really read when your opponent's gonna do a strike move, and that doesn't mean you're gonna counter him every time. You just know it's coming. You just know it's coming a lot of the times, and it's up to you to have the reflexes fast enough, you know, to counter it or not. You know, I was playing WWE 13 for a bit, you know, going through their attitude mode and doing all these things, and the hitting is not the same. I found myself just always going for the grapple because I didn't even like the striking. I didn't like even performing the striking. You know, it didn't really feel like I was doing it in such a way that made an impact. There's something a little bit more responsive with these, you know, No Mercy games, or I should say, you know, AKI developed wrestling games, where the striking feels responsive. You really fight when you're hitting the guy with your striking move. You're doing something. You're making a difference, and you're putting yourself out there to be countered, and you know, vice versa. You know, even with the newer wrestling games, when I would go for a hit, I would be surprised that the computer was able to counter it so fast, because I feel like some of those strikes, the animation, they just happen too quickly. You know, you don't really see the punch, and you know, it doesn't look like it's really hitting the wrestler, if that makes any sense. I don't know if people listening to this have played the newer games and played No Mercy, or if they've only played No Mercy and haven't played the newer games. I'll be interested to hear that if you've played either or. I've only dabbled in the newer games, specifically just pretty much WrestleMania 13. You know, I played some of the Raw versus SmackDown games back in the day, but I never really liked them, and I always thought that they were going to do a No Mercy game, and here we are 15 years later, and we still haven't gotten a game, you know, with this engine. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to Triple H. Triple H, I'm taking on Kane. Kane kind of came into the company around that time, you know, early on, you know, beginning of the Attitude Era and stuff like that. But Triple H, yeah, he was a two-time European champion. So before he was the King of the Kings, he held the European title for 2 times. He actually, I thought it was his first title he had held in the WWE, but it wasn't. He actually was the IC champion first. And he had a little short run with the IC title before losing it and then getting the European Championship. Now, I've talked about in the past before how the European Championship suffered from being this, you know, third title to a secondary title, and being kind of stuck in this, well, you know, it's definitely a mid-card belt, but it is or it isn't on a higher, you know, ranking than the IC title, depending on the day. You know what I mean? Like, some days it was more important, some days it wasn't. And it pretty much happened as soon as the title changed hands. As soon as British Bulldog lost his European title, then it definitely went nowhere. And the perfect example was when Triple H won it, because Shawn Michaels held the title. He beat British Bulldog for the title in England, in British Bulldog's like home country, which you read into that however you want to, because that's right. I think that was right before the Montreal screw job. No, it was after the screw job. It was after the screw job, right? Yeah, I think so. But he beats British Bulldog, holds the title for a little bit, and then no, it was before the screw job. Oh, I gotta look it up now. When did Shawn Michaels win the European title? He won it September 20th, 1997. So then, yeah, the screw job was after that, because it was Survivor Series. So yeah, okay. So it was before that. Anyway, so after Shawn Michaels held it, you know, him and Triple H were DX, and they were rolling around, giving Sergeant Slaughter a hard time. Sergeant Slaughter was the commissioner, and so Slaughter was like, all right, well, you guys are going to face each other. I'm going to break up DX by having you guys go toe-to-toe and face each other for this prestigious European Championship. Because, you know, that was going to work. All of a sudden, these guys were just like, you know what, screw our friendship. We're going to beat each other up for this title because I really want this title. It's going to really forward my career or whatever. Whatever his logic was. And obviously, the big pranksters and the jokesters that DX were, they get into the ring and they look like they're about to have a serious matchup. You know, they're stretching. They're kind of feeling each other out. You know, they go for a... a tie-up, and Shawn Michaels immediately falls to the floor, and Triple H starts running back and forth, taking these big leaps and bounds, like it's so dramatic. And then he stops before Triple H, and he stutters a little bit to do a big splash. It's like Triple H perfected how to do a really terrible splash for this match. It's very funny when you watch it. It's like, wow, that was a really bad splash. Like, I guess you have to be a good wrestler to know how to wrestle badly. It's like one of those things. Pins him 1, 2, 3. They do the whole thing where Triple H is like crying. It's like his greatest achievement. He can't believe he did it. And they kind of make a mockery of themselves being in this European title match, facing each other. But then the title actually changes hands. So Triple H actually does become the European champion. So right there, of course hindsight is 20/20, but right there you're killing the belt. You're making the belt a joke. And the European title would go through this several times before finally being absorbed into the IC title. I talked a lot in the D'Lo Brown episode where the title was given twice. And, Shane McMahon gave it to Mideon, and then Jeff Jarrett gave it to Mark Henry, and both times D'Lo Brown would beat them for it. It's like, well, good job, D'Lo Brown. You beat two guys who had the title, just give it to them. Like, like as great as that is for you, D'Lo Brown, what does it say about the European title? It's a joke title, or at least not a serious title compared to like the IC title being a belt that was fought, blood, sweat, and tears over during that time. Not nowadays, anyway. But during that time, the IC title was seen as a very serious belt, secondary to the World Heavyweight title, and it was still a big deal if you were the IC champion. I mean, the European Championship seemed like it was going to be that big deal, just like the IC title. But when you have Shawn Michaels lying down in the ring, and just, him and Triple H doing it as a joke, it doesn't give any weight to that title. And it's like, okay, well, how are they going to recover from this? Maybe Triple H is going to become this really dominant champion or whatever. And that doesn't end up happening, at least for his first title run. And it's really funny because, I was watching the Monday Night War on the WWE Network. And, I like to call it revisionist history. WWE, they won the war, so now they can write what went down in the history books. If WCW had won the war, they could write what went down in the history books. There's always many sides to the same story. There's a great book called, I think it's called The Death of Nitro, and it goes into all the the backstage things that caused WCW to lose the Monday Night Wars. And it's really candid, and I think they actually just came out with a reprint, a 10th anniversary edition, which I haven't checked out yet. But basically, one of the things that both sources talk about, the book talks about this in great detail, and also Monday Night War series talks about this in great detail, is the finger poke of doom, where Goldberg finally loses his undefeated streak and therefore loses the title to Kevin Nash, which there's a lot that went into that also. Of course, Kevin Nash ends up being the one beating Goldberg the first time, and the way they beat Goldberg was silly. He got tasered, stupid. But then the next night on Nitro, Hogan challenges Kevin Nash for the title, and they're supposed to be feuding because the NWO, it's split and everything like that. And they stand in the ring, so here we go. It's like, oh wow, Hogan and Nash. This is like a pay-per-view match. This is like a big deal. They're rivals now, and Nash just beat Goldberg for the world title, this and that. And they're standing in the ring, sizing each other up. And then Hogan pokes him, and literally a finger poke. And Nash falls, Hogan pins him 1, 2, 3. And it's the European Championship all over again. You know, you can say that now because you can look back on it, but it's like, man, they did that with the world title, and everyone immediately, even at that moment, was like, no, you don't do that. That's the world title. It's not a prop. It shouldn't be a prop. And unfortunately, you could say the same thing sort of about the current world title in the WWE. I mean, recently with Brock Lesnar and, you know, the CM Punk reign, they've been trying to give it a little bit more legitimacy. But for a while, it was going back and forth too many times. I mean, when you have titles dropping back and forth, that kind of reduces the weight of the title a bit. But to have someone just lay down for the title, I mean, you expose the business. Obviously, wrestling is fixed. It's entertainment. But, you know, when you treat the belts like props, it's like, well, then this isn't a sports entertainment anymore. This really is just a soap opera now. It's not about the wrestling anymore. It's about silly angles. Hey, we want to get back at the commissioner. Hey, you know, it'll be funny. He puts us in a match. All right, well, then you'll pin me and you'll actually win the title. Yeah, I'll be funny. Like, it becomes sort of a spoof on wrestling, which is ironic in a way. I don't know, that's just how I feel about it. I mean, yeah, you know, when I watched it as a kid, I didn't really think too deeply about it. I was like, oh, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, those jerks. DX wins again. You can't beat them. You can't play their game because they're too good at it. You know, but looking back on it and seeing, you know, over the years, the ups and downs of all these different companies and all these different storyline angles, and the moments when these titles were really hot and really meant something, that's when it was the most engaging. But when you had these moments where they kind of were trying to make a joke out of it, in a way they were making a joke out of wrestling itself. And it's like, well, then who is your audience? If your audience is the wrestling fan and you're doing these things that would sort of, you know, make you poke fun at the wrestling fan, why are you doing it? Do you hate your audience secretly? Are you secretly trying to make fun of your audience? Because I'm not of the belief that embracing the silliness of wrestling purposefully is beneficial for the wrestling fan. I think wrestling can be silly and have a lot of silly moments, but they should happen organically. But when you do really silly angles that don't make sense within the context of wrestling, because you think it's okay because it's wrestling, then, you know, it backfires on you and it disappoints the wrestling fan. It's like, I don't want you to make fun of me. Like, I want us to both be in on the joke, but I don't want wrestling to be the joke. I don't know if that makes any sense. It makes sense in my mind. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it makes sense or if I need to elaborate it more. But, you know, basically I just think that looking back on it, it was a silly decision and they couldn't really recover from it, because after that the European title didn't really mean much. It always was just a prop. And, you know, I guess that's why it didn't last long. And even when guys did have it on them and you thought it was supposed to give them some legitimacy, it didn't. You know, big example is Matt Hardy. You know, Matt Hardy had one of the longest reigns as the European champion, and it didn't really help him in any way, because by that time it was too late. No one cared about the European title. When Matt Hardy won the European title, they weren't like, oh, he's going to be the next big deal. Everyone was still just looking at Jeff. Meanwhile, Jeff was winning and losing every title, but that didn't matter because it was Jeff Hardy. He was cool. You know, it was, you know, these titles should have helped these guys go over, but instead they had kind of the opposite effect. And I honestly think you can trace it back to when Triple H and Shawn Michaels had their own little finger poke of doom. That's, you know, I can say that now, many years later. But, you know, it's good to look back at the history and to see, you know, what was done, because then you could see, you know, what they're doing now and say, have they really learned from what works and what doesn't work? Because even though the European title is gone, they, you know, look at the IC title right now. You got Wade Barrett comes back from injury, right, to win the title that he didn't lose. That right there is an angle in itself. It's like, I've come back to win the title I didn't lose. you know, beating Biggie. Or, you know, actually, yeah, did he beat Biggie? No, he didn't beat Biggie. I don't even remember how Wade Barrett got the title. That's how bad it is. I don't remember how he got the IC title back. He beat someone. But now he's in this feud. Oh, I think he beat Ziggler. That's what it was. Yeah, so Ziggler had the title. He beat The Miz. Miz won it. Now I'm remembering. Oh my god, it's so complicated. He beat The Miz, lost it to The Miz, beat him back for it, lost it to Harper, beat Harper, and then Wade Barrett came back and beat him. Which is like, okay, Wade Barrett comes back, he gets the title. Now he's going to have the run he didn't have. But now, he's in a feud with Ambrose, and they're playing like hot potato with the IC belt. Like, Ambrose is literally taking it and running around, and now they're like, yeah, this works. Let's throw more people into the mix. And now R-Truth is involved, and Luke Harper is involved, and everyone's running around stealing belt. It's becoming the Hardcore Championship. You know, when the Hardcore Championship was defended 24/7, and 1 second one guy had the belt, and 1 second the other guy had the belt. The only thing that's different is that it actually hasn't changed hands. But by doing that, by creating this whole sort of like Looney Tunes thing around the title, it's like it makes it silly, because at the end at the end of the day, anyone can just take a title and run away with it. What can stop, you know, Truth doing that with the World Heavyweight title? I mean, granted, Brock Lesnar will probably eat him alive, but but still, what's to stop that from happening? Making it sort of this like Looney Tunes-esque, one person will take the title and run away with it. I personally think that the titles need to be unified. The IC title and the US Heavyweight title needs to be unified. And about a year ago, the US Heavyweight title didn't mean anything. You could kind of say the same thing for the IC title. But even now, more so a year later, with Rusev as the US Heavyweight champion, and now he's fighting Cena, and he's in a feud with Cena, and there's a possibility that Cena might win the US Heavyweight title. It's bringing legitimacy back to that championship, because this is a guy who was undefeated and then won a belt because he was undefeated, and now he's being one of the top competitors in the company, one of the top superstars, if not the top superstar. He's a bona fide champion. You know, regardless if he's face or heel, he's a bona fide champion. If Barrett came back with that steam and he's like, look at you, Ziggler, you just kept winning and losing this title. I never lost my title. Beats Ziggler, and then Ziggler can't beat him for the title. Ambrose can't beat him for the title. R-Truth can't beat him for the title. It's like, man, Wade Barrett's the real deal. He's the IC champion. Can't mess with him. That injury is what took him out. Yeah, now he's back. He's bad. You know, he's great, you know. I don't know. It just seems like they're just making all the mistakes they made with the European title, with the Hardcore Championship, with all those other championships, that they did these kind of silly things. I mean, you know, let's go back to Triple H. So after he won the title for Shawn Michaels, he didn't hold it for too long. He had it for 40 days. He had some, you know, defenses on like Raws and everything. He was involved with a feud with Owen Hart. Owen Hart was the last Hart family member to be around after the Montreal Screwjob incident, and that's another thing you can read into. It's like they throw Owen Hart with a feud with Triple H and Shawn Michaels and DX and stuff, and it's like, you know, oh my god, there's so much stuff there. I have to do a like a retrospective, like 10-15 years later, the Montreal Screwjob. Anyway, so he's in a feud with Owen Hart, and Owen Hart wants to wrestle him for the European title, and Triple H, you know, refuses. So then Goldust comes out, who's rolling as the artist formerly known as Goldust, but he's dressed up as Triple H. He wrestles Owen Hart. Owen Hart beats him, and Sergeant Slaughter is like, you know what? I'm okay with this. I'm gonna give the title to Owen Hart. And at the moment, it seemed kind of like, oh yeah, screw you, Triple H. That's what you get. But then it's like, really? Like, that's how champions are made? Like, so now you can have Goldust come in and dress up as anyone and then lose because Goldust can't beat Owen Hart in a match, and that makes Owen Hart the champion. So again, it becomes this prop. And I understand that sometimes belts are used as props, but like, I think belts should be used as props as the prop they're meant to be, which is a belt. It should mean something. I'm not gonna drink coffee out of, you know, a pencil holder. I'm gonna drink coffee out of a coffee mug. You know, if I'm in a TV show, my character needs to drink coffee, then I need to find a prop. What prop is that? Oh, a mug or a cup. I'm not gonna give him a pencil holder or, you know, a big mason jar. Here, you know, it's just a prop. What does it matter? A prop is a prop. You know, no, a prop is something that's used for what it's supposed to be, you know, what it's meant to be used for. If a belt's gonna be a prop, use it as a belt, as a prop, not as just some sort of like way to get guys angry at each other or whatever, or silly things like that where it could just be passed around, or now you're the champion, or now you're the champion. This really bothers me. You know, if you're wondering, like, man, he's really harping on this for a long time, it really bothers me. You know, I'm wrapping up the European series and going through this championship mode and doing the research for watching the videos. You had such great talent involved with these titles. I mean, Triple H and Owen Hart, like, on paper, you look at that like, man, back in the day, oh yeah, man, they should have some great matches. But it took their matches, you know, took back page, or, you know, that was in the background. Their matches were in the background. It was all about DX. It was all about, you know, China interfering in every freaking match. It was all about the European title getting passed around. You know, Triple H would lose the title technically, so then he would, you know, be upset at Owen Hart, and they would have this other chase, and he'd beat Owen Hart for it on Raw on March 17th, 98. And then, you know, this is when he would hold the title for a long time. He would hold the title for 120 days. And between that time, Owen Hart would join, like, The Nation, and DX would feud with The Nation now, and now Triple H is the leader of DX, and all the while, you know, the European title is just in the background. You know, it's just in the background, just being there. And then Triple H would lose the title to D'Lo Brown. I talked about that in the last episode. Now, you know, the interesting thing, you know, if you want to watch these Triple H matches, there's not a lot of them. You can find some of them on YouTube. On the WWE Network, you can watch his WrestleMania 14 match with Owen Hart. They fight for the European title. Triple H wins. The next pay-per-view, they have a rematch, Unforgiven in Your House. Triple H beats Owen Hart again, and both times Triple H wins because of interference on China's behalf. Owen Hart finally gets his revenge in a way. At the next pay-per-view after Unforgiven, Over the Edge. Now he's with The Nation, and him, Kama Mustafa, who's Godfather, and D'Lo Brown, they take on DX, you know, Triple H, Billy Gunn, and Road Dogg. And it's a big cluster, but Owen Hart ends up getting the pin on Triple H, so The Nation wins. King of the Ring 98, Triple H goes into it as the European champion, but, you know, he participates in the King of the Ring, and he loses to The Rock in the quarterfinals. And then that is like sort of the pseudo beginning of The Rock and Triple H having their great feud over the IC title. So shortly after the King of the Ring is when Triple H would lose the European title, and then immediately after that, like literally, he would lose the title, and then the next pay-per-view he's fighting for the IC title against The Rock. And it's like, all that time Triple H had the belt, those matches with Owen Hart, that was all just story stuff. That was all just so we could get Triple H on the path with DX and build DX up. And now it really matters, because now Triple H and The Rock are fighting over the IC title, and they're having a 2 out of 3 falls match, and they're having a this match, they're having a that match, and then they have the ladder match at SummerSlam where Triple H wins the IC title. So it's like, you had all this talent surrounded over the European title, but the storyline is what they focused on. And it's a shame, because, you know, doing this European Championship series and going back and watching those matches, that's why I still think Eddie Guerrero had the best European title run. Because when Eddie Guerrero had the European title run, the guys he was feuding with, you know, he was feuding with Saturn and Malenko, you know, his own Radicals. He had the S.A. Rios match. He fought Jericho. You know, he had such great matches when he was the European champion. You know, it definitely came in spurts when the European title meant something. I think when Benoit, Triple H, and Jericho were all fighting for the IC title and the European title, it meant something, especially with Kurt Angle being the Eurocontinental champion. You know, I mean, for me, it meant something when Matt Hardy had the title, but it didn't mean anything for WWE because he just wrestled on Sunday Night Heat with it all the time. But yeah, you know, and when the British Bulldog first had it, the very first run, it was like, oh wow, you know, WWE did a lot of pay-per-views in Europe, and back then I think they were exclusive to Europe. You know, I want to say I saw some of them when I was a kid, but I don't know if that was just me remembering when I saw them later on. But they used to do a lot of business in Europe, and actually, there was a podcast, I think it was when Shawn Michaels was talking with Jericho. You know, those early days, right before the Attitude Era, when they were struggling as a business. And then WCW came into the picture and was stealing all the guys. You know, Shawn Michaels talked about, like, it was like, you know, him, Taker, and a lot of young guys coming up. And, you know, it was really rough for them. The houses weren't that big. And they only really made good money when they went to Europe. So, you know, you could see that in earnest, the European title probably was created because they wanted to give something back to their audience. It's like, hey, here's a title, we're gonna create it in Europe, and it's gonna be defended in Europe, you know, and then, you know, it's gonna be a big deal every time we come back to Europe, because now the European title is gonna be something very important to the European fans, because they know that that's a title that was founded there, and, you know, the first champion was British Bulldog, this and that. But shortly after Bulldog lost it, it just became, you know, sort of a tool to help feud the DX feuds, and never really recovered after that, honestly, in my opinion. I think that was the downfall. That was the finger poke of doom. And, you know, Triple H, not saying anything against Triple H, he wasn't, you know, running the company at the time. He was definitely, I mean, if anything, more power to him, that because you know, Triple H talks about this, but it's been known for quite a while. You know, Triple H was supposed to win the 96 King of the Ring, and he didn't because of the whole the Click incident, where the Click at a house show at MSG, they all got in the ring together and kind of exposed the business, because they were like, yeah, we're all friends, and now Nash and Hall are leaving, and this and that, and Triple H got the brunt of it, even though Shawn Michaels was in the ring. But Shawn Michaels was a superstar at the time, so Vince McMahon couldn't do too much to him. So, you know, you had Hall and Nash leaving the company, so Triple H got the short end of the stick, and they kind of buried him for a little bit. But, you know, they couldn't keep him down for too long, because, you know, him and Shawn Michaels were instrumental in kind of helping to kickstart the Attitude Era with DX. So you know, all the credit for Triple H for, you know, staying in there and keeping his head up, and you know, eventually making a name for himself despite things being held back for him. But, you know, it's just a shame that you look back at his reign as European champion, and I can't be like, you know, oh yeah, go watch this match when Triple H was the European champion, like I did with the Eddie Guerrero matches, you know. You can't say that about a lot. Now, the IC title, on the other hand, has such a long history, even before how it is recently, that, you know, I really can't wait to do the IC title runs, because you'll see a lot of great IC title matches. Like, I'm just, you know, I already know a lot of them that I want to talk about, but, you know, the European Championship, wasn't many great European Championship matches. It's actually funny, like WWE on their YouTube channel, you know, if you just search European, you know, they have like countdowns, and I was like, oh sweat, they have like countdowns of like top European Championship matches, and I actually read it wrong. It was just top European matches, and basically it was just top matches held in Europe. So they probably even could have put together like a top European Championship matches list, because it probably would have just all been Eddie Guerrero. But maybe, you know, maybe that's something I'll do. Maybe I'll turn into a positive. As much as reading up about the European Championship has kind of brought me down, in the sense that, like, man, like, it's just a shame they did that to a title. And I guess the reason why it brings me down, not that it was a European Championship that had all that stuff happen around it, but the fact that a lot of what happened around it is being done today. I mean, not much has changed. I said at the beginning of the episode, as much as things change, they stay the same, and that's entirely true. You still have titles changing way too fast. You don't have champions staying champions long enough to establish themselves or to establish the title and make it mean something. You have screw jobs causing titles to be changed, which I think works, but not when it's all the time. If a guy's, if the title is always changing hands because someone's getting screwed, then I wouldn't want to be put in the championship match. It's kind of like the monkey paw, It's like whoever touches it, and they think they're getting their wishes granted. You're not. It's actually a curse. And that's how I feel like some of the titles are right now. It's like, no, it's alright. You can have your IC title match, because I don't want to get involved with the IC title right now, because it's just gonna be bad luck. But you look at the older titles, and you can look at it and say, oh yeah, they made this mistake with the European title, they made this mistake with the European title, and then you look at, and this is how they fixed it. Oh wait, they didn't. That's what's going on with the IC title now, and that's what was going on with the world title, and that's what's going on with the tag titles. It's a shame, because I don't know, I feel like when you take away what wrestling's supposed to be about, which is the wrestling, when you take away the wrestling, when the wins and losses don't mean anything, when it's just a bunch of wrestlers who are spending most of their time acting, or trying to act, because let's be honest, some of them can't do it so well, and it's not to their fault. People are giving them the scripts and making them say, here, go read this script, and it's like, dude, I just want to get in the ring and put on a match. It's like, no, go read this script, go beat up the bunny. It's like, well, what do we have left? If we're not watching a wrestling show where, yeah, there's storylines, but at the end of the day, it's about wrestling, when you take away the wrestling, it's like, well, what are we watching? If I want to watch a show about backstabs and betrayals and guys screwing over, I'm gonna screw you, I'm gonna go watch House of Cards. It's gonna be way better than someone turning on someone in the WWE ring and then winning the IC title or something like that. Like, it's just, I don't know, I just feel like there's very few things to keep you engaged these days, and I think the titles should be one of those things, and that's why it's such a big sticking point to me, because when I was a kid, the titles meant something. They really did. You had champions who held it on for a long time, and somewhere along the lines that got lost, and it's like, well, then what's the point? What's the point of watching guys wrestle each other if they're not wrestling for a prize? Like, the prize should be the title. I mean, that's why the Brock Lesnar thing is so interesting right now, because here's a champion who he's like, I'm a prized fighter. I came in to win the world title because that meant big ticket matches. That meant I'm only gonna defend the title at important moments, and that means I'm gonna only make the most money at those matches. That makes sense. He's a wrestler driven by power and money. They're not explicitly saying that, because they're not gonna tell you how much he's making on these SummerSlam appearances and these WrestleMania appearances, but that's essentially what that character is. Paul Heyman, my client, Brock Lesnar. He is a mercenary. He is a hitman, but at the same time, he's a guy who knows that if I have the World Heavyweight title, that means I'm main event. That gives him a goal, and that gives the other guys a reason to go after him, because it's like, okay, yeah, he's big, bad, and he's strong, and he could probably beat up anyone who he's in the ring with, but you know what? I want what he has. I want that title. I want that title because not only can I show that I'm bigger and badder than Brock Lesnar, but yeah, I want what he wants. I want those main events. I want to be the top guy. A guy who's not here all the time, he gets to be the top guy? Like, that's not right. Like, that brings fire back into the world title position. That brings fire back to who gets to be the next world champion. and I think that's why there is so much excitement around, Seth Rollins holding the Money in the Bank, or Roman Reigns possibly beating him at WrestleMania, because the title means something. If the title didn't mean anything right now, I don't think people would be as excited as Brock Lesnar being the champion, because it just would, it's like whatever, it's just any other belt. But since they did make an effort to make it mean something, it keeps you engaged as the audience member. So anyway, that's my little long episode rant on why titles why the European title gets me sad sometimes. But you know what? We're going to turn it into a positive. Next episode, we're going to wrap it up. We're 100%ing the European mode. British Bulldog, we're going to talk about his success as the champion and probably the golden age of the championship belt itself. I hope you like this episode. Please leave comments, whatever you want to say. I don't mind. Good, bad, it's all the same to me. I love it. I love all of it. I love that you're watching it. Keep watching it. Please like, subscribe. Check out the WWE Network, and I will see you next time.